Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so for today's video, I'm going to give you a shoutcast as I am testing out the top 5 teams in Season 7 Go Battle League Great League Part 3. So this is the third time Great League came back. There are some really common teams, especially Team Number 5 and Team Number 4. However, there are some really great battles I'd like to shoutcast, and I'm going to give you a deep analysis on how each team works and some of the things you might see. And if you lose the lead, or if you are terrified of the archetype meta, I'd give you an answer to what's going on, or hopefully I can answer your questions. Anyways, here's a shoutcast. I hope you guys enjoyed these battles. Again, these are the top 5 most powerful teams, and I'll be testing them out here in a shoutcast. Enjoy the battles. Alright, so here we get the battle started. These aren't sped up, so I can give you bigger insight on the team and what matchups you might find. Team number 5, we got Stunfist Pelipper, Venusaur. This is probably the only team where I'm not going to do a super in-depth analysis. It's a very common team. Ephis is a really powerful lead. I have a Pelipper is your safe switch, and your closer is Venusaur. This team does really well with either Charmers or Fighters in the back. Venusaur puts so much pressure on you, that's why it's super good. As you see here, I get my Pancake into a Venusaur. This is terrible for us, so the only way I can actually win this match is if I get an Earthquake through shields. So this is why my very first move is an Earthquake, and it does go through. So I technically lose this lead, but now that we got that Earthquake through, now we can win it. So I can choose to either give up my G-Fisk, or I can try to pressure this Venusaur and just farm it down. As you see here, I'm going to do the later, where I'm going to shield and farm down. Again, this team does really well, especially like Venusaur in the back is a monster. I actually undercharge here completely in an attempt to like get energy back. So I actually, as you see here, I undercharge perfectly and I get some energy to farm down. So again, full undercharge. I was really spicy here, but like I'm not going to get to another Earthquake, so I am going to use my Rock Slide, and this is just going to do extra chip damage. But like I said, this is a very standard team. If you lose win lead, you switch lead to Pelipper. I'm just giving you an example of me essentially just sacking G-Fish just because I managed to win the matchup. So you can either try to win the matchup or safe switch in a Pelipper like you see here, and then close out with Venusaur. Or if you win the lead and throw Swampert into you, guess what? You can farm down with Venusaur. As you see here, this is a really risky move. My opponent is probably carrying Psychic, and it will do heavy damage. So you know what I'm going to do here. If a Pelipper does eat a Power Punch, it doesn't do much at all. So all I'm going to do is straight ball out to my opponent. I'm going to pretend I have Hurricane, but at this point they should be within Weather Ball range, so I'm frantically tapping for that Weather Ball. I do not shield here because I have really, really big coconuts. I have a really high confidence level, and I'm predicting it is a Power Up Punch. So because they Power Up Punch me, guess what? I can get this Weather Ball off, either force my opponent's shield, or this Medicham is going down. Again, very powerful team, heavy pressure on the switch, and it has the lead and closers are very fast charging and super meta Pokemon. Well, this entire line is super meta. Pelipper is actually like a top 10 switch, so even I would consider it super meta. As you see, they're great and they do get a Psychic through, but at that point, I didn't want to use my last shield. As you see, my opponent does elect to give up just because it's pretty much no play. Because I still have a Venusaur with a shield, and that's GG's. But as you see here, very generic team, very common. Safe switch to Pelipper, and then close out with Venusaur. Or try to win switch or play out accordingly. For team number 4, I get another Legend. These are actually really sweaty battles up in here, and against a fellow Legend, I can expect a lot. Now, this is where the number 4 comes in. It is Venusaur Stable Eye and G-Fisk. Now, this is probably the Azu double ghost line just because they decided to switch out with Azu. As you see here, my opponent is doing the right move by safe switching into their Stable Eye. Here's what sucks. Stable Eye loses the 2 shield against Venusaur. That's why I'm putting heavy pressure on my opponent here. However, because my opponent elected to give up to show me their Stable Eye, I'm like, okay, you know, this is probably a double ghost line. They probably have AWAC in the back. As you see, this team does very, very well. It's an incredibly powerful core, and if you do notice, I am using a really crappy Stable Eye. That's an XL Stable Eye, and it's actually a terrible Stable Eye. But even as an XL Stable Eye, even though, as you see here, it's still putting in some work. Or you're going to see it put in some work. However, this team does very, very well. Venusaur is a fantastic lead, does cover the fighters, as well as gives you coverage against water types or mud boys, which are really popular in Elite still. Obviously, if you do lose the lead, safe switch into your Sableye, try to win back switch and realign or play accordingly. As you see here, I will give up G-Fisk because the reason why I'm using G-Fisk in here instead of mirror matching with my Sableye is that I have no use for G-Fisk. G-Fisk can take out Alolan Marowak, however, I'd rather have G-Fisk on this Sableye and give it up because I know that Azu's coming back in to farm me down. Again, this is a very powerful team. Again, Venusaur is a powerful lead. Pretty generic, though. You'd say switch in Sableye, realign accordingly. And if they have a flyer on back, this team does really, really well. Especially against the Swamp Skarmcore, especially if they do lead with Swampert. You could probably bank they have a Sableye in the back, and all you have to do is switch in G-Fisk, win the matchup, realign, and that's GG's. As you see here, I do send in Stunfist. I get an Earthquake off. I want as much chip damage as I can because this range, I should be able to KO it with one Frenzy Plant. I will shield this, however, and then I have my Sableye on that Alolan Marowak, which I'm pretty much predicting is in the back. As you see here, I'm just going to gather a little bit more energy. I'm going to try to get the Frenzy Plant off, but I can expect them to switch. My opponent doesn't switch, so all I'm going to do is just Frenzy Plant here, and this should KO the bunny. Again, Venusaur is very powerful in this meta just because Frenzy Plant does a ton of damage, and it will one-shot all Mud Boys, and it do heavy damage to Azu. So that's why it's very, very powerful in this meta. It covers a lot of archetypes, except, of course, there are flyers and there are ice types out there, so you have to be really careful. Also, Bleed Hypno can give you a problem. As you see, I correctly predicted that is Alolan Marowak in the back. This is GG's, unless my opponent's Shadow has a Shadow Ball, which I heavily doubt. It's a Shadow Bone. And I pretty much just, all I'm going to do is just make sure I don't get sacked on because my opponent still had their Sableye and just farm down. And that's GG's. Again, really good team. Safe switch to Sableye, realign, and if you do win the lead, guess what? You have G-Fist for the popular flyer pattern in the back. And that's GG's. But really solid team. Team number 4 is really great. Team number 3 features it's actually not that interesting. It's Tropius, Azumarill, and Bastiodon. This is basically just using the Tropius Azu core and putting a Bastiodon in the back. Which, if you get a Swampert lead, can work really well. As you see, my opponent does switch into a Ninetales. My opponent, this is a Charmtails, so as soon as I recognize its Charm, yeah, I switch into Bastiodon. Any team with Bastiodon in the back basically banks that Bastiodon can do this to your opponent. They can essentially just farm it down with Smackdown, or you get a really positive lead with Bastiodon, and yeah... I don't really need to explain Bastiodon. You tap down, you gather all this energy, and then you throw it at whatever comes in the back. Even if Swampert does resist this Stone Edge, because it's a ground type, this will still do heavy damage. As you see, well, not heavy damage, but 2 of them are gonna leave a Swampert pretty, in a lot of danger. As you see, my opponent is frantically trying to get to their charge move so that they can Hydro Cannon me down, but I can get to a second Stone Edge and just tap my way down. Again, Tropius Azucore. If you lose the lead with Tropius, safe switch into Azu. Hopefully, you can realign Bastiodon with a super positive matchup in the closer and essentially just tap down. Bastiodon can actually win a lot of matchups in this meta down shields. For example, things like, you just saw me, Alolan Ninetales, Galvantula, Altaria, Skarmory. As you see here, my opponent elects to switch out is the Scar. As soon as I saw the Swampert, I figured there would be a Skarmory in the back because Swamp Skarmcore. Swamp Skarmcore is very popular in Season 7 meta still. And as you see here, I don't have Ice Beam, so I'm actually just going to play rough down. As you see, my opponent doesn't shield, which kind of sucks. However, this is fine because all I'm going to really do is just straight play rough. I can still just straight play rough, hopefully grab shields, or just farm down with bubble with the play rough chip damage. As you see, my opponent does Sky Attack. Azu can take a few Sky Attacks, especially since I am using a rank 1 Azu. Again, this is a very generic team. If you lose with Tropius, safe switch into Azu. Hopefully you can win the mirror with play rough Hydro Pump, and if you do, hopefully you match up Bastiodon with an insanely positive matchup in the back. Again, I'm just going to straight play rough. Azu is still a great safe switch in this meta, despite all of the grass types running around in the back. And despite all of the, pretty much it's the grass types that give Azu the hardest time, to be honest with you. And there is that poison type out there where you can get Gunk Shot by Obstagoon or Sludge Bomb to death, or Sludge Waved by Alolan Muck. So Azu isn't completely safe nowadays. It's definitely not as oppressive as before because it's very prone to getting nuked by a lot of things. For example, if you Hurricane through shields with Pelipper or if you return through shields with Sableye, it's going to be a rough time for Azu because Azu and Bubble don't exactly generate energy quickly because it's a 3-turn move. As you see here, I switch out and my opponent switches into their Swampert. This is kind of terrible because I didn't want this to happen, but all I'm going to do is undercharge, and unfortunately it doesn't work, but this should be GG's anyways. As you see, my opponent had to Sky Attack me, and a Sky Attack will not KO my Tropius, just because Tropius is such a Mega Tank. Again, when you put the most powerful regional together, along with one of the most powerful safe switch in the game, it's still, like, Azu's still very good, and the most annoying tank in the game, in Bastiodon, you have a really good team, and it will serve you well in Go Battle League. Again, you lose lead with Tropius, safe switch into Azu, and hopefully you can realign to where Bastiodon in the back has an insanely positive matchup. Again, Bastiodon can win down shields, as long as you have a super positive matchup in the back. We have our second match over here. This is actually a really interesting team. It's a Pelipper, Meganium, and I forgot what's in the back. But I get a Pelipper into a Tentacruel. As you see here, this is actually pretty bad for us because this Tentacle actually resists our Weather Ball. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stay in here and I'm going to Hurricane Unit. Oh yeah, it's a G-Fisk. So as you see here, I'm going to go for the Hurricane. Here's the thing about my opponent. I'm going to go up to a Hurricane and then I'm going to fire a Weather Ball. Why? Because my opponent has to shield. This will either almost kill or kill this Tentacruel, so my opponent will shield. And now they're going to throw a move, and I'm not going to shield, because there's only 2 plausible moves that the Tentacruel has. Acid Spray, and Acid Spray. I'm just kidding. Acid Spray and Hydro Pump is the likely move. As you see here, I get Acid Spray, and my opponent's just try to Poison Jab me down. I do get a Hurricane off, and my opponent catches it beautifully. However, the thing about it is that Acid Spray lowers my defense, not my attack, so this is still going to do heavy damage against Umbreon. I will switch into Meganium here. My opponent did give up Switch, and I'm going to switch into Meganium. Because Meganium is weak to Poison, I don't want to give up. I don't want to lose G-Fisk. Especially since G-Fisk can still lose to Hydro Pump. Usually, so the thing about switching in like this is that it can also be really risky because if you guess wrong in the back, for example, if my opponent has a fighter in the back, like Scrafty, and I save G-Fisk, I die. So it's kind of like you kind of just have to be lucky on the guess. But as you see here, I can probably Frenzy Plant down, and then what I can do after that is I can attempt to farm down. As you see here, Umbreon will still do heavy damage. Like, well, it doesn't do a lot. Well, it does a lot because it puts me, like, in the yellow. But Meganium's a tanky boy. That's why this team's really good. Meganium versus Venusaur is still really good because Meganium has a lot of bulk. And because it has Earthquake, it's very threatening. I'm not going to shield this. This is most likely an Acid Spray because my opponent is definitely not a Hydro Pump Energy. Acid Spray will still do heavy damage because, unfortunately, my Meganium is still poison. Again, remember I was talking about poison typing? Yeah, well, Meganium. Meganium is grass, so it's weak to poison. They do let the Frenzy Plant through, which is kind of surprising because my opponent won't get to a Hydro Pump. I'm going to send in my Pelipper, however, and then just farm down. I don't want to show G-Fisk yet because I don't know what they have. And they have a G-Fisk of their own. This is pretty much GG's. Now, there's 2 ways I can play about this. Well, there's actually... One, you break the last shield with a Weather Ball, and then you Earthquake with your own G-Fisk to win. Or, you just flex hard AF on your opponent, and all you do is straight Weather Ball. You have 2 shields, they can't much shot you down. And regardless of it, because Pelipper's another great safe switch for a reason, or a great lead, or just in any position, because... in a lot of scenarios, it wins CMP, and Weather Ball Water does a ton of damage. Weather Ball Water actually beats G-Fisk in the 2 shield, and in the 2-to-1s, I definitely have a winning matchup against this G-Fisk. And as you see here, they can't farm me down. Ironically, because I resist the Mud Shots, I can actually live enough to actually get all these Weather Balls off, so that's GG's. Again, Pelipper is a fantastic switch for a reason. Hurricane does big damage, it wins out CMP a lot, and these water Weather Balls will do a lot of chip damage. It's a really good team. That's why you see Pelipper is so popular. And because, well, a big reason for that is also you don't see a lot of Galvantula nowadays. Well, you can still see Galvantula, but the thing about it is thanks to Bastiodons being more popular and just the rise of the Weather Ball meta because Alola Ninetales with Weather Ball can beat Galvantula into 2 shields. So there's a lot of weaknesses and the G-Fisk popularity is why you don't see too many Galvantulas nowadays, especially in the top teams. And the most powerful team features the most annoying tap-tap team lead with a Stable Eye safe switch, and then you have Meta Cham XL. It's really not surprising of how to use this team. As you see here, I win the lead. If you lose the lead, safe switch into your Stable Eye, take back switch will return, and hopefully Meta Cham can go to town. As you see, I'm going to stay in with Bastiodon. I switch really late here. I don't know why I did all that damage, because theoretically what you should do is you should literally just switch out. There's no reason for you to stay in. I kind of ooped here though, because I was like, okay, I don't know. You know what? It's been a long day, okay? I've made a ton of videos, a ton of content for you guys. I'm analyzing while shoutcasting a battle, and for some odd reason, I did not switch out right away against my a super positive matchup with my Medicham. Now, the problem with this matchup is because I switched in late, I likely will have to give up a shield for this matchup. Had I switched in on the right time, I can outpace this Umbreon to all these Eye Punches and convincingly win switch without using my shields. The good thing is, Bastiodon has energy. And the funny thing is that Bastiodon can maul a Marowak to death unless Marowak is up shield, or there's enough chip damage to where Marowak can Blown Club, or they can Shadow Bone or Shadow Ball down. As you see here, like I mentioned before, because I switched in late, that's what happens when you're throwing for content. I'm not throwing for content, but when you're testing teams that are very good and you're not familiar with them, you're kind of slow on making switches. Like my brain kind of had to double take. And I was correct. My opponent does get to their move first, and I have to burn a shield. So if I switched in even a second earlier, I would have been able to just farm down this Umbreon. However, because I have such an insanely good matchup with Marowak, this is perfectly fine. I can expect them to send in either Marowak or whatever they have in the back, and then I got Basti. But they don't have a Marowak. They actually have a Politoed. This is terrible. For a good reason, because Politoed has an insanely good matchup against Bastiodon. So what I'm going to do here is, obviously, I'm going to let Medicham go, and then I'm going to send in Stable Eye. That's my only choice. So I'm going to farm now with Stable Eye. I'm going to wait till my opponent attempts to switch in. This is what I mean, how Bastion can win down with shield disadvantage. You are about to see just how oppressive Bastion is. As you see, I do get Earthquake, which sucks. My opponent makes this sweet swap into their Alolan Marowak, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to let this through. Either that, the shield's going to do big damage. So they shield. Now, watch what's going to happen. This is ridiculous. This is what happens when you have Bastiodon. I will fire the Stone Edge. Even if my opponent doesn't eat this, if they shield, that's great. And then all I'm going to do is farm down this poor Alolan Marowak. They do happen to shield, and all I'm going to do is tap down. Remember, I was down shield advantage coming... I was down shields coming this match. My opponent had shields. Now they have no shields. And all I'm gonna do is just tap my opponent's thing down. This is what I mean by Bastiodon having an obscenely good matchup, and my opponent doesn't have any of the charge moves I mentioned. They actually Fire Blast me, which makes me really angry. But as you see, Bastiodon is a gigantic tank, and Bastiodon don't care. Bastiodon farms down the Alolan Marowak, and then we're just gonna fire all this big Stone Edge energy at this Politoed. I can get to a second one, and this is GG's. Again, Bastiodon is very powerful, especially if you win the lead, and it can allow you to win even down shields like this. I still have a shield. All I have to do is fire the Stone Edge. My opponent's frantically trying to get their other ball, and that's GG's. Again, it really belongs on top of the most powerful team in Great League. Even though I dislike Bastiodon, it's the most powerful team in Season 7 Great League. All I'm gonna do is let my Bastiodon go, send my Stable Eye, and that's GG's. Again, the most powerful team in Great League Season 7 Part 3, featuring Bastiodon, Medicham, and Stable Eye Save Switch. It's really good. And those are the battles. I hope you guys enjoyed this shoutcast. Hopefully my analysis did help you out during battles. Again, these teams are very, very powerful. Some of you you've seen these like 2 or 3 times during the season because they're just that good. But hopefully, like I said, hopefully you got the gist of how to use how to use every team via my analysis, and just how the strengths and weaknesses of each team. If you have any further questions, just go ahead and put it in the comments below, but hopefully I explained everything to you. The number 5 and 4 are very common. The top 3 are just use really popular cores along with really great safe switches. So again, really great teams. These teams will help you climb to Legend or to whatever rank you are right now if you aren't close to Legend yet. Again, if you guys have a question, just please put it in the comments. Please like and subscribe. Good luck in Go Battle League 6, and I will see you guys on the next video.